Hi, we're back. Let's do more problems now. In this case, we're dealing with a quadratic equation. Okay. Well, let's remember from your algebra classes. I'm talking about algebra one. Some of you did it in the 8th grade. Some of you in the 7th grade. Some of you in the 9th, and some of you will say that they never did it because their math teacher was not teaching them right. Well, I know that your math teachers, from the previous years were doing their job right, and you have no excuse for saying that you never seen such a thing. And besides that, if you're taking the proficiency exam, there's no excuse whatsoever. You have to do your best and get the right answer, get the right score, so you can pass and move on and get a college degree or a trade or be rich, whichever works for you. Okay, let's read the equation. X squared plus 2x minus 24 equals 0. And the question is, what is the solution set of the equation? It's a very simple problem, guys. And I expect that all of my students will have no problem, no headache, if a similar problem will pop up on their high school proficiency exam. And the problem like this for them would be just a one more point on their score, right? So how should you solve this genre of quadratic equations? Why is the quadratic one? You guys remember? You can see that the highest degree of your variable is second. That's a quadratic equation. And you have four options, A, B, C, D. Like I have always said, if you have a test with multiple choice questions and there is no penalty, because in some of the tests you're going to take, maybe SAT or ACT, you will be penalized for getting a wrong answer. There's no penalty for that. Well, if there's no way for you to solve it, you better try to guess and make sure you're bubbling into your answer document, either A, B, C, or D, whichever your educated guess as the last resort will tell you to pick, right? But we don't need to guess here. We know how to solve it. And first of all, you're looking at your quadratic expression. The left side, it's an equation, a quadratic one, and you're trying to find out if this is a perfect square. And to check for a perfect square, first thing you're looking at the first term and ask yourself, is that a perfect square? And you will say, yes, it is. It's x squared. How about the last one? That's the second one you're going to check. Is that a perfect square? And you will figure out that's not, right? 24 is not a perfect square. So you can stop and move on to the next possibility. Can I factor this trinomial into two binomials? Is that possible or is prime? And if that will be possible, you will have two binomials, right? You guys remember from, like I said, 8th grade, 7th grade, 9th grade, that if a trinomial is not prime, could be factored, could be broken down into the product of two binomials. Binomials, they have two terms, right? And what is the first term in the first monomial here? Monomial, I'm sorry, binomial, I'm sleeping. Will be x, right? And in the second one also will be x, because you guys remember the FOIL method says multiply the first terms, f stands for first, x times x gives you x squared. So I can tell you with 100% certainty that the first terms in each of the two binomial will be x. Now looking at the last term, and more specifically you're looking at the sign. What is the sign of your last term here? And that's a negative sign. And because the last term, from the FOIL steps, the FOIL method of multiplying binomials, that L stands for last, right? Tells you that the last terms in each binomial, if you multiply them, will give you negative 24, which means they will have what sign? One will be positive, and the other one will definitely be negative. Okay. Next step. Well, in the next step, you're trying to find factors of negative 24 in such a way that they will add up to a positive 2. That's the way we learn how to factorize a trinomial, right? The easy way. Looking at the first term, if it's an x squared, then you have x and x. Last term, if it's negative, you have different signs in both binomials, right? And then you check the middle one, and the middle one is the sum of the factors of the last one. And I mean, many of you will say, well, 24, you know, when you had your multiplication table in the first grade, you learned that 24 is what? 6 times 4, right? But in this case, a negative 24. So one of them is definitely going to be a negative one. But before you decide which one is the negative one, you're looking at the middle term, which is positive. And this tells me that, you know, in the end, if I will add the negative 6 and the positive 4, or the positive 6 and the negative 4, they have to give me a positive sign, positive 2. So which one should be the positive, which one should be the negative? And I will say 6 will be the positive one, right? Because it has to be a positive answer here when you add the two terms, and 4 will be the negative one. And in this way, we're done here. We're done about the factorization of this trinomial. Will be x plus 6 and x minus 4. This is an equivalent expression to your whole quadratic expression here on the left side of your equal sign, and this should equal 0. Now, are you done? Well, some of you will rush and say, yeah, I'm done. You know, the answer is what? X is 6 and y, 1x is 6, 1x is negative 4. And if you say that, you will be wrong, okay? If you say that one solution is negative 4 and one is 6, because that A right there is the wrong answer. You have to think about it. You know, remember I did this in a previous problem. If the product of two numbers is 0, let's say if A times B equals 0, and I'm repeating myself, this is the 0 property of products, right? 0 product property, where it says if two numbers multiply gives you a 0, you have what? Either one of the numbers being 0 or the other number being 0, and this is at least, or you may have both. So in this case, I will have two equations. I will have x plus 6 equals 0, and I will have x minus 4 equals 0. And guys, this is like what? 4th grade equation, 5th grade? From the first one, if you take away 6 from both sides, you find your first solution, x1, as being what? Negative 6. Because what number plus 6 gives you 0? Well, negative 6. And from the second one, here you add 4 to both sides, you'll have the second root, which is what? X equals 4, right? Because 4 minus 4 gives you 0. And now you're going back to the sets of solutions here, and you see what? One solution is negative 6 and one is 4. And the right answer here will be B. Okay? That's one way to solve it. Let me show you the other way of solving it. And the other way, if you don't remember anything about factorization, well, not the only way, just another way, like I said, because there may be another way. Remember, we did it with a different problem. If you have no clue how to solve it, what you can do is to plug in back each one of these x's. You take negative 6, you plug it back into your expression. If it checks out, if you find 0 equals 0, that negative 6 is good. Then you're going to take 4, and you will plug that 4 instead of x. You will substitute x with 4, and see 4 squared plus 2 times 4 minus 24 equals 0. If that is true, if you have 0 equals 0 or 4 equals 4, in this case it would be 0 equals 0, definitely, then 4 is also a solution. You may say, yeah, B is the answer. And like I said, that's the way to go if there's no other method that you will remember about to solve quadratic equation. But there's another one that you learned in, again, 7th, 8th grade, that deals with the quadratic formula, right? And if you guys remember that, that quadratic formula stands, if you have, a general quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then your x1 and 2 will be given to you. And you have to memorize this. I mean, it sounds like, what? But this is one of the formulas that, better have them memorized, will save your time and will save your life. And you have this one, x1 or 2, the two roots, if there are any, will equal negative b plus or minus square root of what? B squared minus 4ac. And we're going to talk about this expression here because we call it discriminant. And some of the teachers told you, some didn't, but we'll deal with that. Over 2a, right? And this is the quadratic formula for a general quadratic equation. But in this case, we have what? We have x squared plus 2x minus 24. So I have x squared plus 2x minus 24 equals 0. And the first thing I'm going to do here is to find the discriminant. And the discriminant, we'll call it delta. And that delta is the expression under the square root from the quadratic formula. And that's what? B squared minus 4ac. And before I will find this one, why don't you guys go ahead and identify first what are the coefficients of your terms in the given quadratic equation. Remember the general form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. What is my a? Well, a is whatever number I have here by x squared, and because there is no number showing, let's say 1, right? Because it's 1x squared. Your a equals 1. What is your b? B is the number that stands by your first degree x, right, which is 2. What is this? What is the free term or the constant here? What is that? Negative 24. Make sure you take the sign that's in front of it. Negative 24. And you plug it back into your formula. And you have what? B squared. What is b? B is 2. 2 squared minus 4 times a, which a we said what? Is 1. I'm going to put parentheses here, although they're not needed, just for you to understand what number goes where and what am I doing here. Times c, and my c would be negative 24. Moving on. 2 squared is what? 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times negative 24, that's going to give me a positive 1. I got 4 times 4, which is 16. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 will be 96, and you find that your delta is 100. And now, because delta is positive, you will have two solutions, two real solutions, okay? If this delta, if this discriminant will be negative, you will have no real solutions. And probably you guys remember from the 11th grade or 12th grade that you talked about imaginary numbers. But I'm not going to go there here because it's not necessary. We're talking about real solutions. And next step would be to find your x1 and x2, which are the two roots. And you will plug into the formula. What is the formula saying? Negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, which we call it delta, right? Over 2a. And I have minus b. Minus b is what? Negative 2. Plus or minus square root of what is my delta? Delta is 100. Over 2a. A in this problem is 1. 2 times 1 would be 2. And this will give you what? Well, I have negative 2 plus or minus square root of 100 is 10 over 2. And from here on, you will find the two answers, right? You have two of them. First of them will be negative 2 plus 10 over 2, which equals what? Negative 2 plus 10 is 8 over 2 will be 4. And the other one is negative 2 minus 10 over 4. Over 2, I'm sorry. Which is what? Negative 2 minus 10 will be negative 12 divided by 2, negative 6. And what do you guys see here? We got the same answers, right? Well, you better get the same answers if you solve the same problem, because otherwise you did something wrong. That's the beauty of math. It's there's only one, well, there may be more than one good answers, but usually if you have an answer by using a method and then using a second method, well, your answers better be the same, because otherwise you made a mistake. Okay? Now this is, or these are the ways in which you can solve similar problems on your proficiency exam. Questions? Thank you.